Is Publisher Rocket worth it? That is a question I've been asked quite a lot recently, ever since I made that video about how I went about generating keywords for my book, High Point. People noticed that I use Publisher Rocket as part of my workflow, and they were asking me whether it would be right for them. And that's an interesting question. I think the reason people were asking is they saw that I use Publisher Rocket, and I obviously get enough value out of the product that I'm willing, happy enough to pay full price for it and use it every time I'm doing some marketing stuff. But it's not right for everybody. And in fact, full disclosure, I bought Publisher Rocket back when it was known as KDP Rocket about 2 years ago, and I returned it for a full refund because I didn't find enough value for it. And it wasn't until I think a year later that I bought it a second time when it was called Publisher Rocket, and now obviously it is part of my workflow. I get enough value out of it that I really think it's worth the investment. But it might not necessarily be right for you, and that's why I'm making this video. Again, full disclosure, I've got a link down below to Publisher Rocket. If you watch this video and you think that Publisher Rocket is right for you, I would request very kindly, pretty please, sugar on top, that you use that link down below, because then I get a little kickback, a little piece of the action, and that inspires me to keep making videos like this. And in return for that consideration, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be really, really honest about Publisher Rocket, and I'm going to tell you the things that are good about it, the things that are bad about it, and the things that can be valuable, and the reasons it might not be valuable depending on where you are in your self-publishing journey. First off, what is Publisher Rocket? Publisher Rocket is a piece of software produced by Dave and the crew at Kindlepreneur that can take the API from Amazon, and that's their stream of back-end information which they use to assemble all of the landing pages for you and display products to you. They can take that information and contextualize it into a format that is really, really valuable for self-published authors. Publisher Rocket does 4 things. It has 4 main functions. The first is it can generate and analyze keywords for you. Keywords are the 7 keywords that you're allowed to put in the KDP dashboard when you first publish your book. They're different to advertising keywords, and I'll get to that. But that's the first thing that it can do. The second thing it can do is it can analyze categories. Every single book on Amazon falls into between 2 and 10 categories. Like, for example, this book here. This book falls into the literature and fiction men's adventure category. It falls into the literature and fiction sea adventure category. Every single book has categories, and KDP Rocket allows you to analyze those categories to see which are the more competitive. That can be very useful as well. I'll get into that. Third, it can analyze the competition. So if you have a book like this, I wrote this book inspired by Clive Cussler, so if I want to go and see what Clive Cussler is doing, get some information about the strategies that are used to market Clive Cussler books, I can use Publisher Rocket to get a ton of information that I wouldn't be able to discern just by looking at the product page for those books. And finally, Publisher Rocket has a thing called Ams Keyword Generator. Now, Ams keywords, Ams is actually a legacy term. Advertising on Amazon keywords are separate to the keywords you use when you first publish your book. These are the keywords that can help you get your book in front of potential customers in the sponsored product ribbon or in searches and things like that. It can help generate those keywords for you, analyze those keywords for you. And that is the reason most people I speak to have bought Publisher Rocket. And therein lies the issue that I have with Publisher Rocket. And I don't really have an issue with Publisher Rocket itself as a product. It's a tool. In fact, it's like this tool. This is a waiter's friend. I've carried this with me since I was 19 years old, opening bottles in a pub and stuff like that. It is one of the most elegant pieces of engineering any self-respecting alcoholic can carry with him. With this and this little knife here, you can elegantly open any bottle of alcohol anywhere if you know how to use it. If you don't, you're going to get immensely frustrated. You can't open your wine bottle and you have to go and use one of those stupid battery-powered rabbit corkscrews or something. Publisher Rocket is like this. It's a very elegant tool, but tools are only useful if you know how to use them. And one of the things I originally found frustrating about KDP Rocket, which is all on me, before it's Publisher Rocket, and one of the things that I know a lot of people find frustrating about it now they've bought it is they thought that it was going to do the hard work for them. They thought it was going to solve their problems. They were like, oh, advertising on Amazon, you need to generate keywords. Publisher Rocket will generate the keywords for me. Job done, bish bosh, 99 bucks down the hole, and I get all of that for free. And that's not how Publisher Rocket works. It's not going to solve your problems for you. And I mean, if you watch that video where I generated keywords, you could see me using Publisher Rocket, and you could see it was part of my workflow. It wasn't my workflow. I didn't rely on Publisher Rocket to do all the work for me. It was just something that enabled me to do certain things much faster and more efficiently. Let me break down all 4 of the segments though and tell you which ones are valuable and how you might best want to use them. So the first one is, of course, the keyword generator and the keyword analyzer. As I say, keywords are separate to advertising on Amazon keywords. The keywords, there are 7 of them. They will exist in the back end of your product page, and they can help your book be discovered through searching. If someone types in a particular keyword and it matches your keyword there, then you've got a chance of your book being displayed because it's contextual to what the customer is looking for. It's also a way that you can get your book shoved into different categories. I mentioned earlier that every single book on Amazon, I think, is between 2 and 10, is inside 2 or 10 different categories, and depending on the keywords you use, that can help tell Amazon when you first publish your book that you want your book to be in that particular category. For example, if you use vampire as a keyword, that's going to shove your book into the romance section that has vampires. It's not perfect, and in fact it's a little superfluous because there is a manual where you can request Amazon to put your book in up to 10 categories, and that is what I rely on now. I don't rely on keywords to do that for me. So I'm a little jaded about keywords. I don't think they're massively useful in the same way they once were, but I will also say that this function of Publisher Rocket is pretty cool. So today, I under my pen name, I write MC romance novels, Motorcycle Club romance novels. So today, I typed in MC romance, Publisher Rocket generated a bunch of suggestions, and then I could analyze each of them. And it was interesting because one of them was MC Romance 2021, and Publisher Rocket listed that it had 38 competitors, as in 38 other authors were using that as a keyword term when they publish their book. I find that interesting because MC Romance has like 1,600 other authors using it. So right away I can see that there is actually a huge scope to take advantage of the fact that MC Romance 2021 is an underutilized term that can hopefully make your book much more discoverable. It's something that you could even extend to advertising itself. So it's useful. I don't think that the keyword analyzer justifies the price of Publisher Rocket on its own, but that's just one of the 4 things that it does. The second thing that it does is analyzes categories for you. And this is a pretty cool thing. So I mentioned earlier that every single book on Amazon is placed in between 2 and 10 different categories. You can think of categories almost like bookshelves in a bookstore. When you first publish a book in the KDP dashboard, you're allowed to select 2 categories for your book to be in. But Amazon will actually allow your book to be in up to 10 categories. So when I first published this book, I had it as, what did I have it? I think I had it action adventure and military thrillers. But then I emailed Amazon and I gave them a list of the 10 different categories I wanted to be in, like literature and fiction, men's adventure, literature and fiction, sea adventure. And the benefit of picking these categories manually is that some of them are more competitive than others. And where you have demand, but less competition, opportunity exists. What do I mean by that? Well, when you write romance books, romance is a very broad category. It's hugely competitive, so it's very, very difficult for your book to appear there in the romance category. But when you have a much smaller category, like, say, sea adventures, that's a category where there are far fewer books being published, and it means far fewer books need to be sold for your book to rank highly in that particular category. And so if somebody goes to the top 100 books in sea adventures, you have a real chance of getting your book way up there and visible, and that can make a huge difference in terms of just organic sales. So picking the right categories based on the competition is a really, really valuable tool to have. How valuable? Well, I saw myself the other day in my journey of self-publishing under my own name as opposed to my pen name. I have the opportunity to do things right instead of having to learn by my mistakes. So when I first published this book, I emailed Amazon and I gave them the list of 10 categories I wanted them to manually put this book into, including sea adventures and men's crime and fiction and stuff like that. Just the other day, I did a promotion on this book, a free promotion through their KDP Select program, which I'll do another video about at some point. And I ended up seeing this book rank #1 in 2 categories. And I was stoked by that. The reason being, in all of the different 25 plus books that I've written and published in the past, I've given away more copies during the 5-day free promotion that you can do through KDP Select. I think my best was 11,000 copies. But I'd never ranked #1 before. I gave away 2,700 copies of this book, and I ranked in 2 categories. And I think that helped, make my book even more visible and get more copies put out there. So it is a really, really powerful trick if you know how to use it. And the wonderful thing about Kindlepreneur as a company and as a resource for self-published authors is there are videos that Dave has produced that show you how to get your book into those 10 categories. So if you combine Publisher Rocket with the information, the resources that Kindlepreneur give you and a little bit of strategy, then you can make a lot of hay that way. So the categories thing, very valuable indeed, I would say. Next you have the competition analyzer. So once again, this book was inspired by Clive Cussler, so I could put in Clive Cussler and I could see what Clive Cussler's people are doing to make his book successful, and you can see how many sales he's getting, what categories they're in, the sort of daily profit and things like that. This can be really interesting information for you. Again, it's one of those things I wouldn't necessarily buy the product for on its own, but it's kind of interesting to have that information at your fingertips. The final thing though is the one that everyone gets excited about, Ams Keyword Generator. So Ams is a legacy term for Amazon Marketing Services. I think it's now called Advertising on Amazon. But AMS keywords are different to the 7 keywords that you have when you publish your book. AMS keywords are what you use to advertise your book using advertising on Amazon. I showed you how I generated them in that earlier video. They are instrumental to your success advertising your book. It is one of the most fundamental routes to success, is to generate a ton of keywords and the right keywords. And a lot of people I speak to buy Publisher Rocket because they think, oh, Publisher Rocket, I'll just put in a few terms, export all these keywords and then job's done. And that's not how it works. That is not how it works. Once again, the Kindlepreneur team have a ton of tutorials and information about how to use Publisher Rocket to generate effective keywords. In my video that I produced about generating keywords, I showed you how I used it. I will put in, for example, a particular author's author ID, so I can pull all of their ISBNs and ASINs and all of the book titles and things like that. If you are strategic about it, it can give you an awful lot of information instantly that you would just spend hours having to manually grab, but only in certain instances. In other instances, it is much, much less reliable than doing it yourself. In that video I gave an example. There's an MC romance author called Eden Rose, and if you type in Eden Rose into Publisher Rocket, it will come up with all of her books and all of the books there, but it will also come up with all sorts of religious books about Eden and all sorts of Disney books about Rose. So it's a tool. It's a tool. It basically does the best it can using the algorithm that's been programmed with, and unless you know how to use that strategically and smartly, the information you get back isn't always going to be great. So I use it as part of my workflow when I'm generating keywords, but it's not the entirety of my keywords. I will pull tons of information from Publisher Rocket, but I will also kick out tons of information because a lot of it isn't necessarily relevant. I find enough value in Publisher Rocket because I know how to use it correctly to absolutely justify the price. The ability to like put in an author's ID and pull all of their ASINs and all of their ISBNs and all of their book titles and things in just like the click of a mouse is really, really fantastic, because otherwise that takes you, 20 minutes, half an hour to do that manually. So that's great, but don't rely on it. Like, you have to learn how to generate keywords yourself. You have to learn how to identify the right keywords. I am hopefully going to provide a lot of that to you for free as I make these videos, but just be aware of that. Publisher Rocket is not going to do the hard work for you. Publisher Rocket is not going to generate gazillions of keywords that you can then go on to have a massively successful, profitable advertising campaign. It can help you get there, and it can do some really, really heavy lifting for you, but it's not going to solve all your problems. And I think that's really, really important to point out. So if you are willing to do the work, then yeah, Publisher Rocket, no brainer. If you're not willing to do the work, if you just want a quick fix to that, if you're not quite sure how advertising on Amazon works, if you don't know where to get started, Publisher Rocket is not going to solve that problem for you. Okay, you have to learn, and you have to figure that out, and you have to watch videos with my stupid mug on and other experts out there to work out what to do. And once you feel comfortable and confident about what keywords would potentially work for your book when it comes to advertising, then that's the time to invest in Publisher Rocket. Don't do it before. Don't run before you can walk. So that's my very quick analysis of Publisher Rocket as a tool. I'm going to follow up by saying Dave and the Kindlepreneur team are awesome. So when I first bought Publisher Rocket, when it was known as KDP Rocket, and I returned it, I instantly received a full refund. I'm part of the subscriber list for Kindlepreneur, and I get Dave's emails and things like that. I often find a ton of value in them for free. So like, I can't speak highly enough about the Kindlepreneur team and what it is Kindlepreneur do and what they offer as a resource for self-published authors. So, Publisher Rocket being a tool, it's an incredibly valuable tool, and you know that if you invest in it, you have a team of really awesome, smart people who are very, very responsive and quick behind it. So you don't need to be worried about buying it as a product. It just might not be right for you. And the other thing to think of is they do keep updating things. I mean, Amazon has this annoying habit of changing things around and sometimes pulling bits of the API, so certain features get broken and stuff like that. The nice thing when you buy Publisher Rocket is they'll keep it updated. They'll keep up with the different changes that might help you get more out of it. They offer a huge amount of resources for free to use the product, and it's just like when you look at like the Mark Dawson Ads for Authors course. Half of the thing isn't the product or the course, it's taking the time to actually do it and actually do your research, take the training, follow the tutorials, learn what it is you need to do. Just like if you buy the Mark Dawson course, it's got everything you need in it to become a successful self-published author if you spend 20 hours doing the course and then you spend 10 months experimenting and figuring things out in terms of your books. So yeah, this Publisher Rocket is not a quick fix. It's not going to instantly go in and solve all your problems and eliminate all of the hard work from the journey that you have ahead of you. However, it's going to be a very, very powerful and effective tool if you have the right mindset moving forward. So figure out where you are on your self-publishing journey and figure out whether Publisher Rocket is right for you yet. But if you're still just dipping your toes in advertising on Amazon, I think you probably need to do a little more groundwork first. Don't rely on it to generate all your keywords. If you are advertising, it can be really, really useful, but definitely very, very far from infallible. Just remember that, like my little friend here, it's a tool. But as far as tools go, I bought it, I'm very happy with it. Every time I do anything advertising wise, I use it. I would definitely be very, very sad if it went away. So I recommend it if that's you. If you are on the same journey as I am and you've got the same, you know, grit, determination, bloody stubbornness to make a go of this, and yeah, Publisher Rocket is a good tool to have in your arsenal. Right, that's it from me. I will be back with more videos soon. I got a fantastic email from John saying, when are you going to do more videos about advertising on Amazon? And I am planning to do one in the next few days about setting up your first campaign for advertising on Amazon, also some other promotional ideas, so I will be back with those soon. Thanks very much. I really enjoy making these videos. Hopefully they provide value, and I will speak to you soon. Cheers.